兄弟们，最新拿下300多台的比亚迪 E9。
More than 300 BYD E9 cars have been sold at scrap prices. They're all compared to Mercedes, BMW, and Audi, with configurations that are even better than BBAs. The key point is, the price is just a fraction of what BBA would charge. They're all zero-kilometer used cars, pure electric ones. If you want them, come quick. They're all priced like scrap metal, sold by the kilogram. How much per kilogram? Let me know in the comments.
BYD's salespeople always say there are no cars available, and delivery will take at least 3 months, but I found a large stock of BYD cars in an unfinished building. This building has been abandoned for over 2 years and now serves as a warehouse for nearby 4S stores. Inside, there's a huge stockpile of new cars, some of which have accumulated dust over time. Let's take a look at the main models. On the first floor, there aren't many cars, but surprisingly, there's a Tong DMP. Let's go upstairs to see more. Upstairs is BYD's main stash. The first thing you'll see is a lot of Chin EVs. This car is mainly for ride-hailing services, so not many people buy it for personal use. The most common cars here are the Chin Plus and Song Plus. With so many cars, it seems BYD is focusing most of its production on these two models. There are also a lot of Dolphins, including the new cheese yellow version. Many of these cars have a thick layer of dust, so it looks like they've been parked here for a while.
Come on, take a look at BYD's Ocean. It's all BYD. Wow, so many small cars. There's an EV Chin Plus, and behind, there's even more. This is a BYD garage. Why are all these cars here collecting dust? I don't get it. The Song and Chin models are top sellers, yet there's still so many sitting here. Are these cars actually selling well or not? If they're selling well, there should be fewer cars left in stock. The new energy vehicles really aren't moving anymore. The manufacturers are overloaded with stock, and dealers aren't ordering new cars.
BYD is China's largest electric car company. In May, they kicked off a large-scale price reduction event, cutting prices on 22 models by up to 34%, which sparked a new price war in the industry. Wei Jianjun, chairman of Great Wall Motors, accused Chinese automakers of having large debts, financial fraud, and excessively long payment periods. He even implied that BYD is the Evergrande of the automotive industry. Recently, a media person who worked for a central government department posted a video revealing that BYD is facing a crisis.
Let me break it down with 5 key points. First, this company owes suppliers 250 billion yuan, with payments delayed nearly a year. That's a quarter of all unpaid debts in China's auto industry. Second, last year, they pocketed 10.4 billion yuan in government subsidies. The state's been bankrolling new energy vehicles for almost 2 decades. That subsidy alone made up 26% of their 40 billion yuan profit. Third, a Brazilian court just ordered them to pay 327 million in damages to Chinese workers, slamming their labor conditions as near slavery. Fourth, their big dealer in Jinan, Changchun, is in deep trouble. They're getting crushed by relentless price wars. A 30% price cut means losing money on every car. They sold 350 cars this month, but next month, they're forced to take on 700. This creates zero-kilometer used cars. Dealers can't afford to buy them, so they get others to snap them up and resell them, scamming double subsidies from the government. Fifth, this so-called global sales champ, the biggest new energy company, pays its workers a measly 120,000 yuan a year on average. Compare that to Great Wall Motors at 170,000 or Geely at 167,000. Honestly, the whole new energy auto market's headed for a major shakeup. You can't keep milking government subsidies, stiffing suppliers, squeezing dealers, and exploiting workers. That's not sustainable.
Recently, the issue of the Evergrande of the car industry has been causing a lot of buzz. According to reports, as of the first quarter of 2025, BYD's total liabilities stood at 594 billion yuan, with accounts payable and notes payable reaching 252.7 billion yuan, a 26.7% increase year-on-year. Bloomberg pointed out that BYD's net debt, including supply chain financing, has reached 323 billion yuan. Supply chain financing is described as a time bomb. What's worth paying attention to is BYD's 250 billion yuan in accounts payable. Behind these numbers lie the bitter struggles of many small and medium-sized enterprises. Earlier this year, a letter circulating online revealed that He Zhiqi, BYD's executive vice president and CEO of the passenger car division, sent a letter to suppliers in late 2024. In it, he claimed that the competition in the EV sector would intensify in 2025. marking a great battle and an elimination round. He requested that suppliers reduce prices by 10% starting January 1, 2025. While BYD is delaying payments to suppliers, it is also asking them to reduce prices, triggering a backlash from suppliers. One supplier, who previously provided door components for BYD, told Chinese media that reducing prices by 10% would lead to losses. Price negotiations do happen annually, but usually within a range of 3 to 5%. A 10% reduction is just too harsh. This supplier said his company had been working with BYD since its early days, but started withdrawing in 2017 and 2018. The main reason was that it wasn't profitable, and the payment cycle was extremely long, about 10 to 12 months. Another supplier currently providing parts to BYD stated that BYD's approach not only violates business ethics, but also unscrupulously drains the hard work and resilience of the Chinese labor force and the survival capacity of domestic suppliers. He continued, saying that BYD, by ruthlessly squeezing its suppliers, is undercutting international markets with cruel pricing. This layered exploitation model has trapped domestic suppliers in a vicious cycle of either getting squeezed out or starving. It has even driven quality enterprises into bankruptcy, ultimately leading the industry into a dead end of low-end competition. Chinese electric car manufacturers' extreme low pricing not only causes losses for themselves and their domestic suppliers, but also places European and American automakers in a survival crisis. For example, BYD's Seagull hatchback cost less than the average price of electric vehicles in the US. Furthermore, the growth of Chinese brands in the European market is largely due to policy loopholes and predatory pricing. More importantly, over 70% of the sales are concentrated in low-end models priced under 30,000 euros. In high-end markets like Germany and Scandinavia, the average price of Chinese electric vehicles is only 28,000 euros, less than 60% of the Tesla Model Y's price in the region. Ursula von der Leyen, president of the European Commission, pointed out that the massive state subsidies received by Chinese companies are distorting the European market. The Alliance for American Manufacturing warned that Chinese automakers could pose an extinction-level event for the U.S. industry, explicitly calling for a resistance to non-market behavior. In recent years, the Chinese government has heavily subsidized domestic electric vehicle development due to overproduction, aggressively pushing into international markets, which has led to anti-dumping sanctions from Europe, the US, and other countries. For example, the EU imposes a 45.3% tariff, while the US imposes over 100%. Southeast Asia and India have also started imposing restrictions on Chinese car imports, fearing that their low-price competition will undermine local industry chains. The EU is currently discussing draft legislation regarding tariffs on plug-in hybrid electric vehicle models, and if this policy is implemented, BYD sales growth will likely revert to its previous levels. In response, political commentator Li Hengqing stated, "Now the whole world is on alert. It's not about resistance, but about being wary of China's massive electric vehicle dumping, because if they come in, they could devastate the domestic electric vehicle industry. Europe's recent negotiations have made some progress, but everyone is extremely nervous and panicked." As China's factory production capacity exceeds demand, car exports have significantly increased over the past 5 years, with BYD expanding into Latin American markets like Brazil, sparking strong dissatisfaction from local industries and labor groups. At the end of May, the world's largest automobile transport ship made its first stop in Brazil, bringing thousands of Chinese-made electric vehicles, the majority of which were from BYD. However, this giant vessel did not receive a warm welcome from Brazil's automotive industry and unions. According to Reuters, BYD has actively used its own fleet to transport low-cost vehicles overseas, with Brazil becoming a major target market. By the end of 2024, 4 shipments of BYD vehicles have arrived in Brazil, totaling about 22,000 cars. By 2025, imports of vehicles from China are expected to increase by nearly 40%, reaching 200,000 units, which would represent about 8% of the country's total light vehicle registrations. Brazil's automotive industry and labor unions are concerned that China's automakers are taking advantage of the window period before local import tariffs are fully raised. Chinese companies are dumping vehicles without following through on investment in local factories or job creation. Brazilians are calling for the government to raise the import tariff on electric vehicles from the current 10% to 35% a year earlier to accelerate industry production. Aroaldo da Silva, president of the Industrial Brazil Union, stated that countries around the world are starting to close their doors to China, but Brazil hasn't done that, and China is taking advantage of it. Brazil is becoming a focal point of controversy in China's global automotive expansion. Unions and industry groups are calling for early imposition of tariffs to show a strong willingness to protect local industries. In 2023, BYD announced it would acquire Ford's old factory in Bahia State, with plans to start operations in 2024. However, due to labor violations discovered during construction, the full production timeline has been delayed until the end of 2026. Another Chinese company, Great Wall Motors, saw its factory plans in Brazil delayed by over a year, with no official production start yet. Igor Calvet, president of the Brazilian Automotive Industry Association, told Reuters, "We support the arrival of new brands in Brazil to produce, promote the component sector, create jobs, and bring new technologies. But from the moment that an excess of imports causes lower investment in production in Brazil, that worries us." Recently, BYD has been sued for enslaving workers, reflecting Brazil's resistance to the expansion of Chinese automakers. On May 27, 2025, Brazil's labor prosecutors filed a lawsuit against BYD, accusing the company of human trafficking and enslaving workers during the construction of its factory in Brazil. According to the Labor Prosecutor's Office, the lawsuit demands BYD and its two contractors, Jingjiang and Techmonta, pay around $45 million in compensation for emotional damages and provide compensation to over 200 Chinese workers. Deputy Labor Prosecutor Fabio Liar explained in an interview that these workers were illegally brought to Brazil and the promised working conditions were not fulfilled. These Chinese workers have all returned to China, and any compensation through the lawsuit will be distributed there, while the Brazilian companies need to provide proof of payment. In December of the previous year, Brazil's Labor Department exposed allegations that BYD's Brazilian construction site contractors were involved in enslaving workers. The Brazilian prosecutors issued a report claiming that workers were treated worse than slaves. Specific accusations include workers' passports being confiscated, 70% of their wages withheld, poor living conditions such as one bathroom shared by 31 people, no mattresses, and excessive working hours. This case represents a significant blow to BYD's expansion in the Brazilian market and damages its global brand image. Beyond Brazil, BYD and other Chinese car makers have opened dozens of dealerships in Mexico and plan to build factories there. These manufacturers aim to use Mexico as an entry point to the U.S. market. However, BYD faces resistance from the local business community, consumers' acceptance, and geopolitical factors. According to a June 10th report by El Economista, Mexico's retail giant, Liverpool, announced it would end its nearly 3-year partnership with BYD for car sales, stating it would focus resources on the group's strategic areas. This change has sparked significant attention within the local business community. BYD began its partnership with Liverpool in November 2022, promoting BYD electric vehicles through Liverpool's offline stores and financial services network. Liverpool has 320 stores in Mexico and caters to a high-income customer base, with 42% of its customers coming from high-income families. With local financial service support, Liverpool's credit card system covers 5.3 million users, addressing the credit issues around car installment payments, an important barrier to the Mexican market. The termination of the partnership between BYD and Liverpool was primarily due to unmet sales targets. In 2023, Liverpool had planned to sell 7,000 BYD vehicles, but only sold 350. While sales increased to over 4,000 in 2024, it still did not meet expectations. The end of the partnership reflects a reassessment of local retail channels in terms of market selection, product structure, and operational models. In fact, many Chinese automakers, including BYD, have been reducing costs by cutting corners, leading to poor vehicle quality. On June 5th, a blogger criticized electric vehicle manufacturers, stating that in the battle to lower prices, manufacturers are cutting corners without limits.
好好看，这就是你们花20几万买的。
This electric car cost me over 200,000 yuan. I'm not naming the brand. Say too much and I'll get slammed for bashing domestic new energy vehicles. Let's just say this brand has zero standards. The rear crash beam, thin as a soda can, might as well use it to slice apples. I hunted for the energy-absorbing box, couldn't find it anywhere, and this so-called crash beam's got a row of holes punched in it. For what? Stress relief? It's practically a soda can. I'm baffled. What's the point of this thing?
In recent years, as China's electric vehicle industry chain rapidly expands, there have been continuous incidents, including explosions, car doors locking, and even fatalities. The so-called smart driving issues are also increasing. However, negative news is often quickly erased online. The Chinese government and car manufacturers are heavily suppressing domestic criticism, even using police forces for stability maintenance. On June 6, a video of an electric car catching fire in a workshop went viral online. Many sharp-eyed netizens recognized it as possibly a BYD Tengshi E9. The video was quickly deleted. Recently, a BYD Tengshi owner posted a video complaining about his experience. He said he was driving home from Shanghai with less than 500 meters to go and 17% battery remaining, but the car completely stopped responding, trapping him in place. He could only helplessly vent his frustration, cursing, "What a disaster, this domestic car." However, this video led him to trouble. He said he was detained by the police for 7 days because of it. David J. Wong, an American economist, stated that China's cost-cutting practices are not only a domestic quality issue, but will also lead to 3 challenges for Chinese car brands overseas: a quality trust crisis, stronger policy barriers, and a damaged global image. This will lead to Made in China being stigmatized again. It's already synonymous with low price, low quality. In other words, internal competition not only destroys the Chinese car industry, but also reversely harms their going abroad dream.